Hey, it's Drew. I just had a really interesting conversation with Janine Pelosi, who is the CMO of Zoom. And what I thought was so interesting was that you're going to have to pay attention pretty carefully because these are some really subtle but important, really important things. Because it sounds so simple when we say, "Hey, here's our position," and "Hey, here's our media strategy." But I think if you listen carefully, there is a really deliberate path for you as a brand, as a marketer, to find and position your brand in a way that can drive all your other communications internally and externally. Give it a listen. I think you're going to enjoy the show.
Welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite, a show that will help you transform your marketing from mere messaging to programs that break the rules and make a difference. Join the movement today and learn non-traditional techniques that give you an edge. Now, here's your Chief Marketing Renegade, Drew Nizer.
My guest today is Janine Pelosi, CMO at Zoom, the web and video conferencing company that is also used to record a fair number of podcasts. In fact, we're using Zoom to record this episode, which, by the way, is a first. So hopefully the sound quality is crystal clear, and we'll find out shortly, won't we? So as CMO, Janine leads Zoom's corporate marketing initiatives, including brand awareness, communications, product marketing, lead generation, and customer marketing. Now, here's the impressive part and why I was really excited to have Janine on the show. Since Janine joined Zoom in March 2015, quarterly lead volume has grown more than 200%, and weekly web traffic has grown more than 1,600%. And perhaps more impressively, last year, Zoom's revenue grew 150%, and its user base grew 250%. So the goal of this episode is to find out what role marketing played in all of this. And of course, I'm expecting that marketing played a lot of it, and what y'all can learn from this success. So with that, Janine, welcome to Renegade Thinkers Unite.
Thanks for having me.
And by the way, you sound great. So I think it's going to be it's gonna work out fine for Zoom. But so let's start for the listeners so they can get to know you quickly. Let's do Renegade Rapid Fire. And you're familiar with the game? Let's get going. What is your definition of marketing?
Definition of marketing is about building a relationship with our audience. I think that's one of the big things that we've done looking back is we've built an authentic brand, and it's because, we focused in on the customer.
Okay, so customer centricity. So what's the primary role of the CMO?
I see my role as, internally is to be an advocate for the team. Don't ask them to do things that we're not giving them the resources and the strategy to go and make it happen. And then externally, building on my last answer around building a relationship is to build the brand, making sure that people understand the brand and they have a preference for it.
So what's your top priority right now?
Ooh, right now, it's the same as when I joined almost 3.5 years ago. I think there's two. The first one is building a preference for the brand. We needed to do that fast, and we continue to focus there. And the other is building third-party validation. I think that Zoom is the easiest to use product out there. Many folks agree, but that's going to be a lot more powerful coming from a customer or an analyst, as frankly, everyone's out there saying the same damn thing.
And that's interesting, and I want to dive on that. So I noticed that Gartner put you in the lead of their Magic Quadrant in 2016. How important these days are the analysts in this framework?
Well, it depends on who we're talking about, right? So we have hundreds of thousands of people that are signing up, every week that are, interested in using the product for anything from, getting their consulting business going, running a yoga practice to, running a Fortune 50 company. So if you're thinking about, those Fortune 50, they're really going to rely on those analysts. And so it is really important, as they're vetting and making sure that Zoom can support their organization.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. A big organization that's making a big investment might be more interested to hear what Gartner has to say, whereas a smaller individual doing this might be interested in just getting sort of customer reviews. So that makes sense. Okay, what's your favorite part of the job?
I think the fact that and I know you're going to want to dive into this later, is that I see, first and foremost is I have a business hat on, and second is my subject expertise around marketing. So I think at Zoom, as a member of our executive team, I'm involved in a lot in shaping our go-to-market. So, and then bringing back to the team how marketing is going to support that. So I guess having to have a wide range of responsibility here.
Yeah, and you do. I mean, and one might argue when we looked at the description of all the things that you're responsible for, there's no way that one individual could be really good at all of those things. So but it's a lot. You cover a lot of territory. Okay, so what's the least favorite part of the job?
Least favorite part, I think it's having to say no. Right? I mean, it's great being in a position where a lot of folks want to work with us, partner with us. We have customers that I've never been in a position where I have so many customers sending me quotes and offering to do case studies, written video, et cetera. So it's a great problem to have. But prioritizing all of that, it's almost forced prioritization, if you will, because we just don't have enough hours in the day to do it all.
Well, and that I think is really, and that is the definition of strategy is knowing what you aren't going to do as much as what you are going to do. So yeah, having to say no is really critical because it means you have a North Star. It knows where you want to go. And so if it's not in that path, you just sometimes have to let them go. Okay. So what's the best advice that you were ever given?
It's that only you own your career and what makes you happy. We talk a lot at Zoom about delivering happiness, and you can see it in our Glassdoor reviews and our CEO just getting number one, CEO out there among some of the greats. But only you own that, right? It's not your manager. It's not your manager's manager. It's not folks that work for you. And so I see my role with my team when I'm leading is to advocate. Once again, I use that word a lot. But at the end of the day, only you know what's going to make you happy and what you need to see from your career.
Interesting. So if I can ask, what's the most renegade thing that you've done in your career? And is that even being part of, that may be the wrong question, because is being a renegade or thinking different part of your personal brand?
It is. I mean, I think I've always been known for asking the tough questions, for, going a little bit outside the lines. I mean, doing so within reason, managing risk, all that kind of fun stuff. But I think it's making sure that you are asking the tough questions, that maybe, others are thinking, which inevitably from what I've seen in my career has gotten us to a better place.
Okay. So then as a renegade thinker, what do you think is the most renegade thing you've done in your career?
Oh, I think it's paid off, but, leaving a Fortune 100 company to join Zoom when we were very small, we had around 100 people. Most of those were engineers in China. And, we had a very small group kind of leading the business efforts. But I believed in Eric. I believed in the product. I believed in some of the peers that were already there. And so I took that risk, and I'm so happy I did. So
far, so good. Okay. Is there a recent book that you've read that made you rethink something?
The Speed of Trust by Stephen Covey. It's one of my favorite books, and the whole leadership team here has actually read it, and I have folks on the team. It's mandatory reading. I just think trust is not a nice to have. And I think all too often it's seen, having good relationships with your peers is something that you hope for. But here it's a part of kind of that secret sauce. That's so interesting. Just had a conversation exactly on the issue of trust overall, and that that we are really facing a trust revolution, if you will. So I'll add that to my reading list. I can't wait. Or I'll actually have to say to my listening list, because I listen to most of my nonfiction. Okay. So last question in this section: will machines ever be able to do your job? I don't think so. I mean, marketing's all about, making connections and doing it in an authentic way. And, it's a combination of art and science. And, it's great to have facts to help guide you, but I'm a big believer in, being directionally correct as well. You have to be able to move fast in the world that we're living in today. So, that combination of the art and science, I don't see a machine being able to cover that anytime soon.
Even with the machine learning and artificial intelligence, they're not going to be able to pull it all together.
Yeah, I think that's going to help us do things faster and inform decisions. But yeah, I don't think it'll get you 100% of the way.
Okay, I'm gonna add one last. If you weren't doing marketing, what would you be doing?
Oh goodness, when I think about what my day might look like if I wasn't in the office or traveling, meeting with customers, I'd be probably in my garden with my phone very far away from me. So I don't know. I'd love to, maybe own a farm. I love to cook. So maybe it's a little B&B.
There you go. So we can be farm to fresh, fresh to farm, or whatever the term is. Okay.
Yep.
I love it. As an urban gardener, I can totally appreciate it. The beauty of my urban garden is that I can do everything I need to do in usually about an hour. So there you go. All right. With that, we are going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into what I think you're going to find is a rather different approach for an online brand, if you will, in terms of their marketing. So we'll be right back.
You've been listening to another great interview on Renegade Thinkers Unite with Drew Neiser. But the value doesn't end there. As a listener, you can download a free ebook from Drew, Renegade Thinkers, interviews with 11 trailblazing CMOs any business can learn from, top marketing thought leaders and proven executives from Time Warner, American Express, and Chico's, and others. Get your free copy at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook. For listeners only at renegadethinkersunite.com/ebook.
Okay, we're back, and I'm with Janine Pelosi, who heads Zoom's corporate marketing. And one of the things I was reading before the recording was that you don't have an outside agency, and you have this. I think it's the Meet Happy campaign, and you're not using digital a lot. But first, talk about the idea behind the campaign.
So where did Meet Happy come from? So early on, if you rewind before Meet Happy, we had video conferencing that doesn't suck, and that came from our customers. We kept asking them, why Zoom? And they're like, well, it doesn't suck. And I realized, well, the bar seems to be pretty low here, if that's what it is. But we decided to stick it on a billboard anyway. We got some good feedback. We got people that didn't like the word suck, and I did field some of those conversations. But we were in a time where there was a lot going on in the political landscape, a lot of, human rights. There was just a lot of, crappy things, if you will, in the news. And we kind of said, let's switch things up a bit. We've gotten the brand awareness. Let's switch to this Meet Happy. And it took off. We kind of thought it would start out as, just a blip, but it's kind of become a part of our brand. And I think anything we do forward will have some element of that.
So talk about a little bit about the execution of this campaign. I know it's on billboards and buses and kiosks, but so what's happening? So if somebody we'll include, by the way, images in the show notes on renegadethinkersunite.com. But tell us a little bit about how you represented this campaign.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer that people don't wake up in the morning and think about your brand, right? And also
no, really,
believe it or not, right?
I'm so disappointed.
Right?
I was just thinking every morning, every B2B marketer woke up and said, "Gee, I wonder what Renegade's thinking about today."
I know, it's disappointing, isn't it?
It is. I'm crushed.
I know, but what they are going to do, most of them are going to wake up. They're going to go through their emails, check their calendar, go through Facebook, go through Twitter. And there's just so much noise out there. So, we do digital. It is a part of what we do. But, as a proportion of our spend, it's going to be much lower than most folks in our space and in B2B in general. And it's because of that frequency, right? So we've got billboards have always kind of been a big part of what we do out of home, right? So you'd execute that differently if you're in San Francisco than if you're in New York or London. London, for example, we have around 400 taxis rolling around London. So those are fun. When it's going to depend on the market, so we have radio. We do things on BART here in the Bay Area, or the Tube in London. But we leverage digital in a way that is more of a demand capture. People throw around the term demand generation a lot, and it's like, well, that's just marketing in my mind. There's the stuff you do to create demand, and then the things you do to capture it. And so we use digital and more of a capture mechanism.
As it's the way you catch them, but all of your outdoor, if you will, is how you, in a sense, create awareness. Now you're in many ways a B2C and a B2B play, right? I mean, anybody can use Zoom, and so the chances the outdoor would make a lot of sense if you're looking for lots and lots of people to be aware of your brand.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, we need the decision makers to have a preference for us, but then we also need folks to use the product every day. We are a SaaS business, and if they don't renew, if they don't see value, then they're no longer your customer. So it's not a one and done. We've got to continue with that delivering happiness.
And so first on the delivering happiness and the meet happy idea, it's funny. I'm reminded of a presentation I once saw where somebody from corporate social responsibility showed two ads, and one of them was sort of sad and the other was happy, and the conclusion was advertising doesn't work. But the flip is also true, in that just smiling and doing something positive provides it's almost like there's a pheromone response to it. And so just suggesting to people to, one, connect, and to do it in a happy way it's a very happy message.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more. I mean, I think one of the biggest compliments I've received is from customers that have had the opportunity to come in and into the Zoom offices and be told that our brand externally represents our internal brand and the culture of our company. And I think that's incredibly important.
Oh, totally agree. I mean, because if you were all sad and meeting sad, that would be discovered rather quickly.
That's right.
That would not be a good thing. So I can imagine some of the listeners, and they're seasoned marketers, and they're thinking, God, outdoor, how are you measuring it? I mean, everybody, 400 taxis in London. I mean, do you have a tracking study that shows that you had brand awareness and lift, or what are you doing other than just saying, wow, website traffic went up?
It's a combination. I mean, all the marketers have the data. Like, we have built a homegrown attribution system, which is definitely a piece of that. But I'd say, we look at the data that's readily available, right? And that's going to vary from business to business. But you're going to know those KPIs that can tell you whether you're making an impact in a certain market or with a certain segment. And so I think the combination of it really comes down to us aggregating that data and looking at it frequently.
And so, and I don't want to dwell on this too much, but so you did 400 taxis in London, but you could have done 100 buses, right? And if someone is trying to figure out the difference in it's, can you get that granular when you're looking at outdoor properties in terms of the impact they might have on your brand?
Well, I mean, I think it also helps that, as you mentioned earlier, we do all of our creative and all of our media buying in-house. And so it has been building a lot of relationships in a lot of different markets with a lot of different vendors over time. But you have to know that market. You have to sometimes stand in a street in London and see what's going to affect you, right? I mean, we're marketing to people, right? These are humans at the end of the day. And I think all too often that's forgotten. So I think it's going into each market and understanding what makes sense for your business to tell that message.
So if we had some lessons learned from this broad-based awareness building and this marketing approach that is sort of, we'll just call it out of home first, it sounds like, unless there's some other components that I'm missing. Are there other media components that we haven't talked about besides what's going on digitally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one that there's a lot of hype around, but the whole, social side of things, we're very proud to have a number one share of voice when we think about social media overall. And I think that comes back to our authentic brand. We post to our blog a lot. Our CEO doesn't mind doing webinars where our customers or prospects can come in and ask him anything. He's awesome. We joke that he's an extension of our marketing team. So I think the social nature also continues that drumbeat, of building that relationship over time.
You're doing it all in-house, controlling it, understanding the markets. Those all make sense. Is there some secret sauce that you think you're bringing to the table in this portion of the marketing planning that you're doing?
It's so funny. Like even just hearing you say that, I'm like, wow, there doesn't sound like anything that exciting. And I think it really comes down to us. We just really take a practical approach to our marketing. We try and not overthink things. And, it is, there are lots of tools in the marketing space and others in B2B and in tech. And I think it's, it's knowing your business and what you think is going to make an impact. But, in terms of a secret sauce, I think it's keeping things simple and practical and staying focused.
Right. Well, as one conversation I had recently, it just reminded us simple is very hard.
It is. It is.
It's really hard. And it's really hard because it means that you have a sort of deeper understanding, right? It's harder to write something short than it is long. It's just like it could take hours to get a perfect headline. And so simple is really is underestimated in both its power, importance, and difficulty, right? But what I like about Meet Happy is that there is this strong sort of emotional halo that becomes part of the brand that is in some ways the product experience delivers that. But I feel like this is more than simply saying, hey, you can do video conferencing. There's something bigger going on here with your brand.
Yeah, I mean, I think it also is important to note that we have a really, really strong product. Like our NPS is a 72. It's unheard of in most brands, let alone, B2B and especially in our space. And I think, I've talked about the delivering happiness and, being customer centric. And I think a lot of people talk about that. But at the end of the day, it's really hard to execute on. So we try and keep that top of mind.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to dive into how do you make a promise like Meet Happy real? We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Hey, it's Drew. I was at a conference the other day and somebody looked at my saw lapel pin and said, what's up with that? And I said, well, what's the one thing that marketing has always had to do? Forget digital, forget all this stuff. What is the one marketing imperative? And he looked at me and went, cut through. And I went, yes, ding, 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 ding. That's right. Cut through. That is what marketing must do. And it's not just cutting through the clutter, although that's really important because if your marketing doesn't cut through the clutter, it's like the proverbial tree in the forest that falls and nobody hears it. But it's also cutting through the crap and the processes that inhibit innovation. We've been working a lot lately with some CMOs to help them cut through the crap and get at the essence of what is their big idea. And how can they make a case to expand that idea across their business? That, to me, is cutting through.
Okay, we're back with Janine Pelosi, who is the CMO of Zoom. And we're having a happy discussion about meeting happy using Zoom. So it's a little meta at the moment. But so it's in some ways, it's a very simple promise, meet happy. In other ways, it's a huge promise. And I'm curious as to how, from an internal standpoint, you all sort of operationalize the notion of meeting happy.
Yeah, so I mean, that obviously extends past marketing. We're out there making the promise to the world, screaming it from the rooftops. But I think, continuing to keep the product focused, continuing to keep our sales teams and the rest of our employees, to be frank, really humble, like understanding that. I think that's a big piece of it. That word humble would be a theme here, because I definitely think we have the best product in the market in our space. But if you go out there and are bashing, competitors, it just doesn't make anybody look good, right? So it's kind of like it's the cool thing to do here to be happy internally from a culture standpoint. And the other thing is no one's ever going to get fired here for doing the right thing or having good intentions. Like it just wouldn't happen. And so I think our employees feel very enabled to do right by the customer, whether it's providing support to a free user who's never going to pay us, who's trying to figure out how to meet with their grandmother that's 6,000 miles away on the consumer side of things, or somebody that's doing a webinar for the first time and they feel like their whole business is riding on it. So they'll spend that extra time with those customers, kind of in all areas of their journey.
Interesting. You mentioned earlier that your CEO is sort of makes himself available for things like AMAs. Curious, how important is that to your ability to drive, interesting and effective marketing?
Oh, it's incredibly important. I could not do my job well, and to the extent of building the brand that we have in such a short period of time, if our team did not have his support. I mentioned earlier, we joke that he's an extension of the marketing team because he really does come to the table with fun ideas, but he also pushes us and other areas of the business to rethink kind of norms out there, right? So while we look at best practices and such and what companies are doing things really, really well, we always look and say, okay, well, how is that going to work inside of Zoom and what does it mean for our customers? So yeah, his support is critical. If there is one X factor or secret sauce, that's probably one of them.
Yeah, it's one sort of key for any CMO that I've talked to that's been effective doing something a little bit different. It's that there's a CEO right behind them that says, go for it, and if it doesn't quite work out, I'm okay with that as long as you have a strong rationale and a plan to measure it. We've talked a lot about the successful parts of your program. Sometimes it's interesting to talk about something that you had thought was going to work really well that didn't quite meet expectations. Anything like that happen in the last 3 years for you?
We've definitely been expanding internationally faster than any of us would have ever imagined, which is a great problem to have. But kind of taking the same approach in some markets doesn't always work. So I think, I gave the example earlier around making sure that, you don't just take a billboard on the side of 101 in San Francisco and try and put a billboard in Times Square. That's not going to work so well. So we did a little bit of that when we went into London, but luckily, because of our strategy of kind of testing in, we were able to kind of pull back quickly and adjust. And I think, while it was a hiccup, it was a good reminder, as we go and put our feet on the gas.
Okay, I got it. All right, that makes a lot of sense. And so I'm going to attempt to summarize some of the things that I heard, and then we'll circle back to see if there's some other lessons learned here. So at the very center of this conversation is a clear and powerful promise, this promise of meet happy. And if you think about that on many levels, you can apply that internally. You can apply that certainly externally in terms of the promise. It also sort of, it makes you smile. And in a world where we could all use a smile, it's just wonderful to be part of a brand that is likable and likable matters and encourages people to be likable. So really large, profound, yet simple, clear promise is sort of number one. Number two is, if you are a brand seeking lots of customers in the freemium model that Zoom operates in, awareness matters. And so looking at outdoor as a way of building awareness makes a lot of sense. I actually love outdoor. We've over the years done all sorts of programs in our guerrilla marketing days with taxis and things like that. And the amazing thing about outdoor right now is we all are outdoor, and and you pretty much see it, right? It's hard to ignore. So building that awareness factor was sort of after a very clear, simple but profound promise. Three, we didn't get into this in great detail, but third-party endorsements, whether it's Gartner for the business customer or customers for the general consumer, and bringing in social as both as a way of validating that third-party endorsement, but also amplifying it. And while we didn't talk about it, I'm just extrapolating here based on what I heard. So those three things alone are really important. And we mentioned that simple is hard. Well, it's hard to get to a promise like Meet Happy that works as well as it does. It's hard to keep your marketing plan focused. The fourth thing that I think I could go to is understanding the role of the media in your mix. And we talked about outdoor as the awareness building, and both for customers and non-customers, because it reinforces things with customers. But digital's role not as demand generation, but as demand capture. And as a product that is sold online, obviously that's where the credit cards are captured. So thinking about your digital experience in that way as creating this net that can in fact capture the customers that you've made aware through your other activities. So I boiled everything down to four things. What did I miss, Janine?
Staying humble while you're doing all that.
Yeah, stay humble, because even if you're growing really, really fast, something could go wrong. And that's an interesting idea. So now, to stay humble in your mind, is it the mindset that we should be competing with ourselves here, that we should be not accepting what we're doing today is going to work tomorrow, and therefore, which also reminds me, you did mention that customizing for international markets is really important, whether it's and you mentioned in this case a media, but I wonder also in some cases it may be message that needs to be customized on an international basis. But where was I? I lost my train of thought there. Hang on one second. Let's see. The humble. We were talking about being humble. Okay. So I'm just curious how you use humility. Is it a way of forcing yourself to stay competitive?
Yeah, I think it's, internally, it's staying focused, putting one foot in front of the other. If you're thinking about it from a sales standpoint, it's not, checking out and going on vacation once you hit 100% of your target. It's continuing to try and get to 200% of your target if you have to. And from a marketing standpoint, it's, not being out there bashing competitor, focus on yourself, right? Keep your house in order. And externally it's similar. It's keeping that humility in everything that you're doing and never assuming that you're on top, because, things can change overnight.
Never assuming you're on top, even if you are. I love that. I also love not wasting your time bashing your competitors or frankly, even looking at your competitors. One of my favorite interviews a few years back was with Sir Terry Leahy, who became the CEO of Tesco. And he described his career as sort of flatlining when he kept looking at the competitors and saying, how do we do what they're doing? It wasn't until he stopped looking at them that he was able to put Tesco on a path to a true innovation. So I love all of this. I'm wondering if there's, in that, I think, Janine, I think this has been a highly instructive show.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And to the listeners, thank you so much for spending time with us. I understand that your time is precious, and I hope we've delivered some value. And if we have, please share it. Reminding what Janine said, feel free to share about on social, write a review, tell a friend, and of course, until next time, keep those renegade thinking caps on and strong.
This has been Renegade Thinkers Unite, but it doesn't end there. Just go to renegadethinkersunite.com for more and subscribe to the show. That way, you'll never miss an episode. We'll talk with you next time on Renegade Thinkers Unite.